What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be taking a deep look at the new speed holster attachment that was added with Season 3 of Battlefield 6. I'm going to be taking a look at exactly how this works, since there is a little bit of confusion surrounding this at least, and then I'll also be sharing whether or not I feel this is worth using on your pistols. Now with this attachment, when it comes to its availability, it's available on all of the sidearms aside from the ES57 and the VZ61. On top of that, something quite interesting here is the M44 has two versions of this. It has a 5-point version, which is the same one that all of the others have. But then on top of that, it has a second version, which costs 10 points, and it's meant to just be an upgraded version of that, and we will of course be looking at that as well. And when it comes to what this actually does, when you look at the description in-game, it just says it improves your weapon draw speed. However, when you open up the expanded stats for the gun, you'll see it's also going to be helping with your sprint recovery time. Now that might be a little confusing or surprising because in the blog where they announced this attachment was coming, the description for it said, need to be quicker on the draw when switching from your primary weapon. This low-cost attachment improves weapon draw speed and is available on almost all sidearms. So based on that description, it appears to be helping with swapping from a primary over to your secondary weapon, and there's no mention of a sprint recovery time there. So with that in mind, let's dive into the testing, and we'll start it off with the weapon swap speed. Does this actually allow you to swap to that sidearm any faster? Well, the first gun I wanted to test is my preferred sidearm, the M357 trait, and I've got these synced up to the moment the swap animation starts. And if you look very carefully, especially in slow motion, you can see that on the right with this speed holster, I'm able to fire my gun after swapping just a little bit sooner than if I'm not using this attachment. And it turns out this is literally just one frame at 60 FPS or two frames at 120 FPS, essentially about 17 milliseconds faster with this attachment. So it does appear that little segment from the blog post was accurate. Using this attachment does help very slightly with your ability to swap to your secondary weapon and have that secondary ready to go. Next up, let's have a look at sprint recovery to see if this actually allows you to come out of sprint and fire any faster when using that gun. And it didn't really come as much of a surprise, but once again, you can see that I can fire very slightly faster on the right with the speed holster equipped when coming out of a sprint with this gun. And as those extended stats state, this is once again a 17 millisecond improvement, so literally one frame at 60 FPS. But next up, I wanted to take a look at the M44 because, as I mentioned earlier, it has two versions of this. It has an upgraded 10-point version, and according to the extended stats on this, if you use the 5-point version, you're going to be improving your sprint recovery by 17 milliseconds, whereas with the second version, you're going to be improving it by an additional 17 milliseconds, or roughly 17 milliseconds. They might round a little bit. And taking a quick look at the testing, this is exactly what we see when it comes to the swap speed. With the 5-point version, I'm swapping 17 milliseconds faster, whereas with that 10-point version, you can now see I'm swapping 2 frames faster, so more noticeably faster than not using this attachment at all. And it's the exact same story with our sprint recovery time. Really, there's no surprises here, just wanted to make sure I was showing off why there's a 10-point version of this. It just allows you to bring that to the fastest possible sprint recovery time, as far as I can see at least, at 67 milliseconds. So overall, when it comes to this attachment, it does appear to have a dual purpose. Not only does it help with your sprint recovery time, as the extended stats state, it also helps with that swap speed. But this had me thinking, does this apply to any situation where there's an animation to get your gun up? What about using equipment, for instance? So the first thing I tested here is throwing a smoke grenade. If you've already got your pistol in your hands, and you want to throw a smoke grenade and then fire your gun as soon as possible after, does this attachment help? And it turns out, yes, it does. You can get your gun up that 1 to 2 frames faster if you're using the second version on the M44. And we see the exact same trend when using a supply bag. Essentially, weapon draw speed is referring to any situation where you have to draw your gun, whether that's from a sprint or swapping a weapon, or bringing that gun back up after using your hands for something else, like throwing a piece of equipment. And this wasn't all that surprising to me. I kind of expected this behavior to be the case, but I did want to make sure I was confirming that and passing that information along to you guys. And that's pretty much it. This is a super straightforward attachment. There's not too much else to say about it, aside from whether or not I feel it's worth using. And in my opinion, it just kind of depends on what you have available points-wise. With the sidearms in this game, you only have 60 total attachment points available to you, and therefore 5 attachment points is more valuable than what you would tend to find on primary weapons. In saying that though, we're also quite a bit more limited in the attachment selection that we have available. And in the case of the M44, for instance, If I put the most expensive attachment on from every category outside of ergonomics, which is where the speed holster is, I still have 10 points remaining, which means the second version of the speed holster is an absolute no-brainer on this gun. Of course you would want to use that because you can't spend those 10 points anywhere else. Whereas in the case of many of the other sidearms that have more attachments available and it's much easier to max out those 60 attachment slots, with those, I would be a lot less likely to use this because realistically, that one frame faster at 60 FPS or that 17 milliseconds faster, it's not all that likely that that's going to be changing the outcome of your gunfights relative to some other attachments like hollow points or maybe a bigger magazine or a laser, for instance, that allows you to hit more accurately while hip firing. So essentially the way I'm going to be treating this is if I build my preferred version of that sidearm and I happen to have those extra 5 points available, then of course it's a no-brainer to pop this on. In saying that though, I'm not going to be building my loadouts around this attachment. It's just going to be sort of that bonus if I've got the spare points. Now of course, those are just my thoughts on the speed holster attachment, and this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. How are you feeling about this particular attachment on the sidearms? Is it something you see yourself going out of your way to use and like building around it? Or are you like me, where you'll throw it on if you happen to have the points available? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.